Hey everyone, welcome. It's Inktober, which means, of course, it's October. None of that fancy art talk for all of us. Today's prompt is crystal. Now, I've got my own self-imposed rules for Inktober this year. One is that I need to draw traditionally. So, cool, no problem there. I've gotten really used to drawing everything on the iPad with Procreate. That doesn't mean that I can't adapt. And my other rule is to keep it short. I have a tendency to get caught up in detail, and I'm going to try to avoid that for this process. My third rule is to not be as safe as I tend to be, because I'm really trying to stretch my own rules and boundaries here as an illustrator. And my fourth rule is to make it monstrous. So whatever the prompt is, I have to make it monstrous, because that's what the Grimmleighs channel is all about. We're about monsters. So we're going to make a monster that's composed mostly of crystal. Now, the music is not normally what I'm listening to, but it's royalty free. So, and for royalty free music, it's pretty good. Normally, I'm listening to kind of a more power pop mix. The second prompt, the day 2 prompt, is suit, and I'm already racing through some options for that. And then vessel. Vessel's going to be an interesting one as well, but I don't think the rules that I've put in place are going to hinder me. They're actually going to keep it fun for what I like to do. Of course, if you follow Grimmleigh's Fiends at all, you'll recognize this is the very typical monster design for me. I like an underbite. Underbites are cool. Alright. I've got it mostly penciled in. Start inking. Went with some friends of mine once in the early 1990s to an area in Park City that is now completely covered in ski resort. But when they were blocking in the area that they were building on, you could go up there and dig for quartz crystal, which was really neat. And it's also kind of amazing because you don't know how sharp quartz crystal is until you're messing around with it, trying to dig it out of a rock. So I remember we'd be up in the mountains for hours getting sunburned and digging up quartz to sell basically, by the pound to new age shops and witchcraft supply stores and stuff. But you'd get pretty good sunburn and hand covered in cuts from pulling crystals out of rocks, pulling crystals out of the ground. A lot of fun though. Funny, my hand is already cramping up, which means I've been spending way too much time on the tablet. I'm not used to holding onto a regular pen, so I'll have to make that, change that up a little bit. What's kind of liberating about this particular project, though, is because I'm just going with getting it done. Not getting too caught up, like I was saying, with the details. Then I can just lay down ink, and that's liberating. So that's why I'm using a Sharpie fine point, because it gives me a little bit of control. And I can go into some detail work if I want to, but it also lets me lay down a pretty good amount of ink really quickly. Well, obviously, if this guy's sporting a ton of crystals on his head, he's probably made of rock. The other fun thing with this project is any one of these things could be elaborated on later. So if I find a design that I really like, cool, I can look back on this project when it's done and say, okay, did we get any cool creations? Did we get any fun monster designs that can be elaborated on or built out on? Are there stories we can build with any of these? Any of these going to become a regular Grimmleighs character? And what's the story behind this guy? What's his motivation? Probably should have pulled up some reference for crystals. I'm going off memory here. Love elementals, stone elementals, rock elementals. Those are some of my favorite things to draw anyway. You see in the Grimmleighs channel that I draw a lot of nature creatures anyway. So a lot of dryads, a lot of creatures with bark, stone. It's just some of my favorite stuff to draw. And even some of the miniatures I like to collect, a lot of dwarves. And inevitably I end up building stone golems for them. And rock elementals to take into battle. Because it's cool. It's kind of primally pagan without being too obnoxious about it. Alright. Starting to come together. Pectoral muscles and deltoids. Your big muscles are always kind of fun to do when you're roughing in stonework. Because, you know, why would this stone elemental have anything like pectoral muscles? On the other hand, That's what we're used to seeing on anthropomorphic characters in the first place. So why not put in some massive stonework that's just a big stone peck, you know? Let's get a collarbone stone, or collar stone, would that be the word? Yeah, let's get a collar stone in there. And then, since we don't have connective tissue from musculature, we have to build it up with the rocks, which is fun. Let's get that other pectoral stone in there. All right. What was my second rule? Don't get too detailed. I realize I'm mostly, it's quick scribbles and squiggles for the most part. But this is the kind of stuff that I could very easily come back in, especially in Procreate. I could scan this picture and go into Procreate and clean anything up that I felt needed to be cleaned up. The other thing I love to do with stone monsters, I'm not going to do it with this guy because he's just fine. He doesn't seem like he'd be the most modest stone elemental, but I love to put like a modesty shrubbery or something in the midsection here, which is kind of silly because, you know, stone monsters aren't, they're not gendered, so we don't really have to worry about offending anybody's sense of decency. But I always have a good time with throwing something goofy in there. I think it goes back to being a kid and chuckling over fig leaves on biblical portraits, right? Like, here's the first humans according to those stories, and you know they're wearing fig leaves, so not to offend Aunt Abigail's sensibilities while she's thinking about her church stories, you know. Let's get this guy just ridiculous rock toes. And the toes are essential for our balance, so I assume they're going to be essential for a giant elemental stone monster's balance. Okay, we're coming up on 20 minutes. Okay, that's too long. 20 minutes is too long, but we're doing this live. Well, I'm recording it live. But this is, you know, this is the process. This is the project. Get this. Let's get this last arm in. All right. Let's get a little separation definition in the head. Bring it out from the body there. Yeah, just for fun. Alright, so there we are, 24 minutes, and I think there's still enough time to get, excuse the creaking of my chair there. Throw a little color down, right? Nothing wrong getting a little color in there. These markers still have any ink? That marker's dead. Dead marker. Now, that's what happens when you buy a marker set in 2012 and don't do anything with it for a decade. That one appears to be more purple than... Alright. A little darker than I would have wanted it if I've been paying attention. That's the problem with these. I can't remember the name of the off-brand markers that I picked up here, but it was some markers that I picked up when I was really broke and needed some markers. So I was like, oh yeah, let's get these knockoff markers that, you know, this is supposed to be a 3 out of potentially 10 darkness for this gray blue. And if that's a 3 out of 10, then 4 is almost pitch black, right? So I think now that I'm doing better financially, I should probably get out there and get some new markers. Definitely don't want to be in a situation where you're doing a live illustration with something and potentially going with a color scheme that you weren't prepared to unleash on the world, right? One of my favorite things with alcohol markers is that you can put down a dark color like that dark blue and see how when I go over it with the lighter blue, it the alcohol in the marker start breaking up the intensity of the darker color. So it made it more of a shade than just this oppressive gray-blue color, right? I'm going to do the same thing with this khaki green color. Right now, it's so dark that it's kind of obstructing things and obscuring the image to a certain degree. When I go over it with a lighter brown or a tan, it'll break that up quite a bit. Dwarf buddy some color. Dead marker. Yeah, I definitely need to invest in some new markers. It's never been more painfully apparent than it is right at this minute. Also, to be completely fair to myself, did not realize I was going to be talking myself into putting color into this drawing. That's the most entertaining thing about being me, is I can set out to do a project and 2 hours later wonder exactly what I got myself into, because I'm definitely going to take it farther than I was planning on going with it. See where it goes. The other thing I realized, I don't have a big eraser. Man, what's going on with my art supplies? It's like I started doing digital artwork and suddenly I'm dealing with entry-level art supplies again. That's the funny thing about drawing on a tablet, is that you don't need your big art gum eraser. You don't need to worry about having a bunch of an expansive collection of ink or colored pencils or whatever medium it is that you like to lay down your color with. The tablet has that covered for you. Procreate's such a wonderful program for giving you everything you need that you tend to kind of forget take it for granted after a while. I'll have to write an apology letter to my tablet. Tell that I'm sorry for taking it for granted for so long. Wrong color. Let's see if this trick still works. Actually, let's see if I still have other markers. There goes some Copics. Yeah! Saved. Well, saved by the wrong color. Oh well. It's definitely not something that I'm gonna subject everybody watching to. A madman trying to find a blender. Yeah, that's dead. Alright. Let's try one last group of things before calling it good. Yeah. That's a good enough amount of blending for what I wanted to do. And on the last step, of course, I'm going to go back over it with a eraser. This is the poor person's gouache, or I don't have gouache. I don't, however the hell you pronounce that. I probably need to invest in some, but this is just a quick and dirty drawing, so I'm not too worried about using, the really good quality stuff. But normally gouache would be the stuff that I would be using to put in these highlights. I've got a really good bottle of Vallejo Model Color White acrylic. That'll do the trick in a pinch.